Welcome to the Non-Sequitur Show. Continual watching beyond this point may result in terminal face palming and a complete loss of wokeness. You have been warned.
All right, welcome back to the Non-Sequitur Show. It has been a day. It has been a journey. To tell you the struggle to even get back to streaming has been something that has been a life-altering process, to say the least. And over a period of time, I'll tell you guys more details. But right now, all that really matters is that things are going really well for me. I am happy, and that's all that matters. I do have a lot of people in my life that have wanted me to get back into streaming and for other reasons. So I'm going to lend my voice and my channels out there to put out what I've always wanted to put out, which is my beliefs. And if people wish to engage on those beliefs, as always, I'm happy to do so. My channel has always been, a place where people can go and share ideas. And that's absolutely fine. We should, in this day and age, be willing to have discussions. However, I want to make it very clear that this channel is no longer a debate channel. Debates are great. I love them, and I love channels that have the modern day debate. James over there, awesome debate. So if you like debating, go to Modern Day Debate, and tell him Steve says hi. I fully support his debating. So if that's what you're into, great. And I'll still review some debates every so often as well. But my goal has changed. My goal has been recently, very recently, I guess you can say, just to get the information out to the people that I care about. My loved ones, my friends and family, and that's it. And if people want to come along for the ride, that's fine. It's not about subs. It's not about clicks. It's not about anything else, but getting the information and talking about it with people that I care about and the people that have been actual friends of mine. And speaking of which, I'd like to introduce you to one that has been around the channel for a while, David Pallmann. Man, it has been a day, actually. Well, it hasn't been too long ago, but, since you've been on the Non-Sequitur Show at least. But welcome, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Quick question. Are you sure that we're live? Because I don't have any notification here saying that we are.
It shows that I'm live. Yeah. It
Okay.
shows people
All
are
right.
watching. I have some people out there in the live chat. So
Then
let me
we're
know.
all good. Typically, I get a notification on StreamYard when it's like saying that it's gone live, and I didn't get that. So I just wanted to make sure.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to do what I usually do. I'm going to ask the audience out there if you can hear me, if you can hear him, if everything's good on the audio, and then we'll kind of get into the discussion of the day. But make sure that it is going out correctly. It does look like it is on my end, but I got to tell you, it's been a while, and I had to redo all my streaming software. I had a little bit of a computer glitch, I guess you can say, and I had to redo a lot of things, and I'm still working on it. I still can't figure out the live chat as far as the chat box when it comes from Streamlabs. I still can't figure that out, so it's still blank there. It should be actually showing what's in the chat, but I see a couple people. I see Zebulon out there, so
All right.
let me just double check that it is going. Oh yeah, okay, so yeah, they can hear us. We're good to go. So anyways, Dave, before we get started, let people know who you are, because I really have been a big fan of yours. Obviously, people that know both of us know that we have different theological beliefs, but politically we align pretty well, except that you probably go a lot further than I do, which is fine. But tell people about yourself so we can kind of get a broad spectrum of ideas from me, which is still more moderate to right, leaning more right, and you, and I'm just going to say far left, or excuse me, far right, but you're going to explain what that means. So there you go.
Yeah, well, so in the YouTube space, I go by the moniker Faith Because of Reason, and that's just in, acknowledgement of the stuff I do in the kind of apologetics and philosophy of religion space, which is what I mostly do. So I don't dabble in politics too much, mostly just because things get toxic super fast. But obviously, I have my political opinions, and I would describe myself as being far right, which I mean, it's really just, it's a traditional conservative, but with society going so far to the left, I mean, at this point, I think it's fair to say that I'd be considered far right. What I don't mean by that is that, I'm a fascist or a white supremacist or anything like that, which people often assume is sort of baked into the far right label. So I don't mean to identify myself with those sorts of things when I say that I'm a far right conservative.
Which is kind of funny because I've always thought that people like Trump and other politicians tend to be more moderate to right leaning. I don't consider Trump by any means a far right. You're not. See, you're further right to the right than Trump, but you're not far right like the Nick Fuentes type thing, which is because again, I want to make sure that we recognize that the far right, as understood by most people in the social media domain, people like Nick Fuentes. Nobody wants to have anything to do with him. In fact, I don't think his audience is even organic. I really don't. I think it is completely inorganic. He does have some followers, which I think are complete psychopaths, because I don't know if you remember, one time he actually had them swore allegiance to him, and I think he was dead serious. It was a form of mental manipulation, but most of his engagements are bots on Twitter. I do believe that he takes money for his opinions, and I do believe that he gets money from foreign interest that I've seen from various Twitter people that I follow that have looked into the financial things have seen that he's making money off these things rather than maybe promoting his real beliefs, which, sure, he might be putting on his real beliefs and still getting some money from it, but it doesn't seem organic to me. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I would describe him as really more like a bastardized far right, somebody who almost just does it to be like an edgelord. I'm an actual like ideological far right person, not somebody who, is just trying to say the most random shit to get attention. And I think that Nick is oftentimes doing that. So yeah, I would agree with what you said there.
I agree with you. Oh, I got my chat box working. It is working now. You know what? I think I could do this too. Let me check on this. I'm curious. Does this work? Let me see here. No, it doesn't. All right. So anyways, a person had said Trump literally had dinner with Nick Fuentes, and who knows what happened a long time ago. And again, the politics that are out there of who associates with whom is no interest to me. All I'm going to tell you is my positions. I can tell you what other people have said. I can give you the data. I can give you the evidence. But the identity politics of who talks to whom, I'm not going to get into, because that's their business. And maybe, again, I don't know what they know about the person. I don't know how long ago things are, and it's irrelevant to me. All I know is, me personally, I wouldn't go out of my way to spit on Nick Fuentes. I think he's a disgusting human being. That's what you have to take away from my channel, from my position, because again, he would be considered to be someone who is a white supremacist. Man, I think he's pretty well known for that. And the last time I had somebody on the NonSequitur show, if you remember, was a very long time ago, who was considered to be a white supremacist against a black nationalist for a debate. Things went south really quickly. They both ended up agreeing to an ethno state, and of course I was like, this is not good. Nope, don't want this. I don't know if you saw that episode, but yeah, would you agree on that?
Would I agree that I want an ethno state? Or
no. Would you agree that neither one of us would want anything to do with any kind of white supremacy or anything like that? That's just insane.
Yeah, no. I don't, and by the way, I don't think that's actually consistent with traditional conservative beliefs either, which is why I actually refer to white supremacists, like the true ones, as like bastardized far right.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think that's the true far right.
No, I don't see the far right as those types of groups to have anything to do with conservatism. They have an agenda. That's their positions are ideologically based, not politically based. Yeah. And so I think that's a danger to society, because when you have ideological beliefs that will supersede everybody else's belief, that you have to mandate in society how society gets along, then I think that's a dangerous position to take. And so I try to take things from a philosophical standpoint nowadays, as you know, and I think you do too, and then build our ideologies from that, which I think is a much more healthy way of doing it.
Yeah, and it's also important to separate sort of ideology from what is actually achievable in the realm of politics. And that's one reason why I think Trump is so successful, because Trump is not an ideological conservative, not
by any means. No, not by
yeah,
any means.
Trump is a thoroughgoing pragmatist. As it happens, unfortunately, conservative ideological ideas tend to have significant overlap with what is pragmatic, which is why I support quite a lot of what Trump does. But I recognize that, I'm not going to be able to get all of my ideas out there, right? Everything that I would want accomplished. I live in a diverse society where most people don't necessarily want what I want. So in the realm of politics, I'm trying to see what can get me the most of the things that I want, but that's going to be, acceptable to most people, because that kind of, back and forth between getting what you want accomplished and also balancing that with the needs of or desires of everyone else. Trump gets that, and so that's why he's been such a successful politician, in my view.
So you're basically saying compromise because we all have to get along in civil society.
Yeah.
What a concept, man! Wow, that's pure genius. I don't know why anybody hasn't thought about that before. But it's strange that people don't get it. It really is. It blows my mind.
That's why the left is losing, though. They will not compromise on anything. And so if you don't pass any of the purity tests, they'll just kick you out. And so that's why so many people are coming over to the right.
Which is exactly what happened. That was cancel culture. People got canceled for not using people's preferred pronouns. It was insane. It was absolutely insane because, if I had to kind of place where Trump is ideologically, he would be considered back probably, more like, if it was back 50 years ago. He was be an old school Democrat probably. I think he maybe was he was a Democrat at one time, wasn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
Musk as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I think they were Democrats at one time. So ideologically, his positions come from a business point of view. He was a businessman. People can criticize his business acumen and his judgment all you want, irrelevant to me. But he came from a business perspective rather than a political perspective, which changed the whole dynamic of how we voted for a president, how people wanted to have a president. People were tired of politics as usual. They wanted something different. And his views were resonating with the people that had more of a regressive than progressive view back, at the middle of Central America, the blue collar workers, so the middle class people. That was who it was resonating with. And then when people were finding out that Trump was literally telling the truth about a lot of things, which even I had a question at the time, people were like, oh, crap, maybe there's more to it than this. Maybe I should look into these things. And then they listened to the media, the social media and the mainstream media and what I would call the quote fake news. And they said, this isn't right. They're not telling us correct information here. And most of America, I think, has now dived into those things, at least reasonably, because I see people talking about things that they have never, ever probably heard about before. Which we'll touch into a little bit here as I go through my Twitter timeline. But have you noticed that from your neck of the woods, from a theological point of view? Because again, you're with the Christian community. I get along with many people in the Christian community, and we agree ideologically on the fact that politically we have to change society back to where it was. We have to go back to some sense of morality, and the only way we're going to do that is to have these types of conversations, but not debates. We're going to have conversations with people that we get along with and understand, and explain to people that don't get what's going on.
Yeah, you gotta. Not that we're not open to persuading people, of course. It's just that there's
sure.
Unfortunately a sizable number of people who just kind of they won't let, because they don't care. They don't care about the facts. So yeah, I kind of operate on the sort of philosophy that reality's there, and it's going to impose itself. So reality always wins, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. Is we're seeing the idiocy of the left just completely collapsing, and we're seeing Trump build a coalition against it. And I'm just here for it, to be honest.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think that reality is always going to win because it's reality. We may not understand everything about reality, but we do know certain things for a fact. We still understand the ontological persistence of things that are just going to be true no matter what your belief is, what my belief is. And if people cannot see those objective facts, it's going to be hard pressed to change their mind or even have civil dialogue with them because they're not interested in that. As a matter of fact, have you noticed that the left has amped up their rhetoric and all they have left is this vilifying people by pejoratives and invectives and slandering them and defaming them because they're not willing to talk about the topics. And I'll tell you, Dave, and I really do want your opinion on this. My position has changed very little, but people's other positions have changed a lot, which makes, me clearly push to the right more. But I've learned how I'm going to change my way to approach different things because I am no longer interested in having, yelling, screaming, debate kind of stuff. I have no interest in that. I have no interest in people that are just going to come at me sideways. No interest whatsoever. I laugh at them. I mock at them at this point because I just think that they're so ignorant that I just really don't want to waste my time with them, right? And I think that's how we're going to have to treat people from the left from now on. That they're going to, and I mean the far left. And I hope that the mainstream left, the average Democrat, can understand this and leave the Democratic Party just like Musk and Trump did and other people do. But I'm talking about the far left radicals that it says we can't get through to them. The only thing that we can do is expose them and mock them and not get baited by them. Don't get upset when somebody calls you some, name like a fascist. Go, what? Look, nobody cares any longer. It's not going to stigmatize you like it once was because of cancel culture. Nobody cares because they know where the source is. They know that the people saying that you're a fascist are not worth people. Nobody that you and I or anybody that I know that I get along with that are my friends would give a shit about because that's not the normal America. That's just a very fringe, very myopic slice of America. And you could prove this because look at the ratings of all the mainstream media, the CNN, the MSNBC, Jimmy Kimmel. Their ratings have plummeted. It's not because, of Trump. It's because nobody's watching them anymore because they know they're fake news.
Yeah, they've definitely, we're seeing all-time lows in people's confidence there. And so, of course, obviously, as a result, and some of that is also just, a younger generation coming in that, I don't get my news from television and shows like that. So, obviously, some of it's a bit of a generational shift to different mediums, but that's not all of it. A lot of it is just their credibility's been completely undercut by parroting just obvious lies and nonsense. And they think like they insult everyone's intelligence, right? They were all putting this ridiculous idea out there that Tyler Robinson was like this MAGA Trump supporter. They knew that this was going to be debunked like within 3 days, right? Nobody was going to believe that anymore.
Right. They knew it would be a story from the get-go. It was literally just to brainwash people.
And sure enough, it was, right. He wasn't a griper. He wasn't MAGA. He wasn't anything like that. And so now, like, they've had to pivot to, the text messages between him and his trans boyfriend, weren't they so touching? And he was doing this to protect him and blah, 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 blah. But there was never any accountability or apology for, just spreading this blatant lie. And they think that we're just going to forget about it.
Yeah, they made it emotionally based, right? Because people know logos, pathos, and ethos, obviously, the different ways of persuasion. They made it about emotions. They made it about a person's lovey-dovey relationship and how sweet it was. And I'm thinking you're trying to relate the execution of a possible future president, whether you agreed with Charlie Kirk or not, is absolutely irrelevant. Really, absolutely is irrelevant. It is, this person was a communicator, just like I tried to do at one time. This person was somebody who was willing to put their beliefs out, which I always will. And it's somebody that was speaking to children and kids about how to critical think because they were being so indoctrinated by the far left in the educational system is just incredible. The things that students have been taught blows my mind. It's scary. It's super scary because it wasn't an education. It was indoctrination. And so I think that the way we have to go forward is to, again, excise that radicalism from our society and hopefully reach the people that can be reached, because I don't know what else to do. I've seen all types of people, all types of beliefs, and I categorically believe that there's just people you can get through to, and there's people that you can't right now, and you have to focus on the ones that you can.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that. And we're really well positioned to do that because this last election cycle has really shown me that the left, the far left, does not have any arguments. Like they don't have a case to make. And they got ridiculously unpopular positions. There are some unpopular positions on the right, but we also have a lot of really popular positions. And given that the left right now has no argument, we are so well positioned to persuade those who can be persuaded over to our side. And I think just a big part of it was getting over the emotional manipulation, the fear of being, labeled as a homophobe or a bigot or whatever. We just don't care anymore. And I think we're starting to really see that. It really came out, several months ago when JD Vance just was, became the meme of, I really just don't care, Margaret, right? That's what we're seeing with the left. And the right, the dynamic there. We don't care about the labels that they want to put on us anymore. And it's not because, we actually think that there's anything to these labels. It's just that the left has so overused them that we're just seeing the law of diminishing returns sort of in action here. Once you, call everyone a fascist and a Nazi or whatever, then, at some point the term just doesn't mean anything anymore.
Where are you going to go from there? It's diluted.
Yeah. They overplayed their hand on so many fronts.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. That's why none of those things bother me. Look, and again, I'll tell my audience, people that have been around the channel for a long time, stick around if you want to. Hopefully you will if you're interested in the subject matter. But if you're not, hey, go somewhere else. Don't bother me with anything that's happened in the past. This is a new day, new age. The world has changed in many, many different ways. But I do think that there's hope for a few people, and those are the ones that I really do, honestly, like I said, focus on. So let me get to live chat, then I'll get to my Twitter here. But again, to my audience, don't try to convince me that 1 + 1 = 3. Don't try to convince me that chicks can have dicks. Don't try to convince me of anything that I know is ontologically impossible or just metaphysically incorrect. You want to insult my intelligence, that's fine. But it's funny, Dave, because I used to be known as the person who would explain very complicated things to the average person, dealing from everything from physics to math to astrophysics to biology, whatever subjects we would talk about. I would at least try to learn about them sufficiently where I can at least talk about them to the average person. That was kind of like the thing that I did. And all of a sudden, I'm a complete idiot. I mean, I'm just beyond stupid because even though, I still totally am against things like flat earth and things of that nature, the fact that my political beliefs are a little bit changed, but they're still, I think, normal. I'm all of a sudden the dumbest person on the planet. I don't know what happened, man. And you look at Dave's books. He's a well-educated guy, and you're clearly further to the right than me, so you must be dumber than I am, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we go by that reasoning, yeah. I mean, look, we have plenty of disagreements, you and me. Obviously, some in political stuff.
I love it. How's externalism doing?
Yeah, well, in epistemology, obviously in our religious beliefs, we have a whole bunch of differences. What I don't think someone can say about you, Steve, is that you're stupid, right? I mean, I've engaged you on this stuff. I'm a hardcore classical foundationalist, incorrigibilist. Obviously, I know you're a bit more of a fallibilist about these sorts of things, and we've had our disagreements.
I love so weak. I move really more from classical to more weak foundationalism, but the core principles are the same.
Right, but the point is that you're aware of this stuff. You've read about it. Like I can have a conversation with you. You know what the heck you're talking about, right? You know at least like the basic ideas here. You've read a lot of the people that you should be reading. We can have an intelligible, substantive dialogue about this stuff. You're clearly not stupid. You're clearly well informed. I can disagree with you about some of this stuff while still acknowledging, oh, you're not an idiot, right? The left can't do that, right? The left cannot, at least the far left, cannot just have a reasonable conversation with you and say, all right, look, I understand that position. I think you're a smart person, and I think you're wrong because of X, Y, and Z. They don't have the X, Y, and Z, and it's like painfully obvious that they don't. So they have to just insult you, bully you, label you, try to cancel you, and that's all they have left, and it's just not working anymore.
Yeah, and but here's the difference. There's nothing real of critical importance. There's no existential crisis to be had if, for example, you and I disagreed on externalism versus internalism. Okay, big deal, right? If I go to something about more along the lines of coherentism, you go to foundationalism, who cares, right? These are just philosophical positions that have no real impact on our lives. But if you tell me that you think that it's okay to politically assassinate people, now we have a substantive fundamental disagreement to be had. And it's more than just a disagreement. It is, in my opinion, bordering on psychopathy.
Yeah, because then we're getting to something that it's going to have bigger effects on our sort of day-to-day life, right? What you believe about the structure of empirical knowledge is not going to have any effect on me or the society that I live in. But if I'm living in a culture where people are celebrating the literal cold-blooded murder of someone just because they didn't like his political positions, that has a bigger impact, because that is going to affect the kind of world that I live in, right? I mean, I recently got married, right? I want to have kids and raise them in the
I'm
world.
so happy for you, dude. I seriously, bro. I mean, by the way, you got lucky, and you better worship whatever God you believe in, because there's no way you got that woman on your own. Okay, I'm just telling you.
This is true. I don't deserve her. She's definitely the best half. But point being, right now I'm starting to think about like the sort of world that I want. It's not just academic anymore, is the point here. I'm thinking about the sort of world I want to have my kids in, and I don't want them to be raised in a world where it's just considered culturally normal to celebrate the murder of someone. That's not the way I want them to be raised, and I don't know why anyone would. And that shouldn't be a left or right issue. That should be like, we can all agree like murder is bad and we don't celebrate that.
And I'm definitely going to get back to that left and right issue, because I'm going to put a pin in that for right now. But I definitely wanted to get back to that, because there's some things I want to add on that. I'm going to get to live chat here in a second, and then we're going to go to my Twitter feed. Before I do, though, are you familiar with Scalion's work with contractualism in society?
So I did a little bit of brushing up on it prior to this stream, so I can't claim to be super familiar with it.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious, because I do accept contractualism to some degree, that what we owe to each other, in that we have obligations to society. We have duties and obligations as members of society to contribute to society that we live in, because if not, you're not going to have a functional society. And I see a lot of people that have main character syndrome, narcissism, egotism, whatever you want to call, whatever their mental disorder is, but it's always going to be about them. And we have to start thinking about other people. We have to start putting ourselves in the position of, do I want this done to me? No, I'm not going to do it to somebody else. We have to realize that we are part of a collective, and that's not a hive mind. And I think it's disingenuous when the left, calls people a cult, or they call people, a hive mind, when it's just normal people recognizing that you live in a world where there's other people, and you have to accept this reality, and you cannot force your beliefs on other people by violence. It'll never happen. It has never happened in history. Sure, short term, yeah, okay, but in the long term, I just can't ever see it happening.
Yeah, and I mean, well, this might even be an area where you and I disagree. Obviously, as a conservative person, I see I connect this a lot to this issue of family, right? The left seems to really be trying to atomize people away from their sort of connectedness to the rest of society. So I want to, bring the focus back to families, right? Incentivize people to get married, have kids. And I know I'm sounding like Charlie Kirk here, but I think
I think it's great. I look, my life paths took different turns, but I got to tell you, a lot of things have been changing in my life. So who knows,
But yeah, fundamentally, I mean, I think that a good, solid families are the basis of a solid society. That's where people fundamentally are sort of shaped and learn to function within a smaller group, right, within a family. But that when it's done right, ideally would prepare them to function, as functional adults within society as a whole. But because of this sort of attack that we see from the left on sort of the traditional family, and this attempt to atomize everybody and get them separated to themselves, isolated on their phone, these are unfortunate consequences of that sort of destabilization of the family structure, and sort of trying to not make that the central aspect of society anymore.
100%. And by the way, I do think that is by design. I do think that the left wants to destabilize society. I think that's their entire goal. And even though I'm going to put a pin on it, this is a great time to go back to that pin. I don't think it is even a left and right issue. I think it is a group of people out there that don't give a damn about the left. They don't give a damn about the right. Their entire existence is to cause discord, strife, and confusion upon people. And let me explain why real quick. I don't want to get too much into this, but I will tell you this, Dave. Studies show in brainwashing techniques that if your brain is somehow confused on something, you're going to latch on to the first thing that starts to make sense. And your brain does this automatically. It's a lifeline. And it may not fully accept it yet, but it at least gives some credence to that possibility. And the left starts playing on that, right? They are brainwashing people. I mean, you agree with me that CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, NPR, PBS, these are not news organizations. They are legitimate 100% DNC propaganda. That's it. Would you agree on that?
They are definitely propaganda machines.
Yes. And so they're utilizing that brainwashing techniques to lie to the American people based upon some of the political stuff that we'll be talking about on the Non-Sequitur show over the future episodes, which I'm not going to dive into too much here. But we will be talking about the Smith Monetization Act of 2012, because I think that's really important to things, and Operation Mockingbird. But it is something psychologically happening to us. And so I don't think that the people in charge really give a damn about any of these causes. All they want to do is see two groups of people that are bitterly fighting it with each other, and somehow they're going to profit from them. But anyways, let's dive into some of these live chat things. And before we get started, I will show you on my Twitter feed what I pinned. The person, they're going to watch this probably, so I got to be real careful what I'm saying here, because I don't want to overplay my hand here. But anyways, I met somebody recently I've known for about a year. One of my neighbors, wonderful woman. We've had nothing but the best time hanging out. There's a little bumpy stuff, but it's funny because, dude, my entire perception of this person was 180 degrees wrong from reality. And once I realized that, I got to tell you, this is one of the best friendships I've had in a very long time over a short period of time, because I know that I'm going to know this person for the rest of my life. And I think that's meaningful when when you're cognitively aware that you've met somebody special. No matter where it goes, right? If she gets married one day, I would dance, at her wedding and be happy for her, because of what friends do, right? And and if we ever got married, which again, I don't not saying that we would, because again, who the hell knows? But I'm not taking anything off the table, because I really do like this girl. I do. She's really cool. We have a great time together. But you know what? That's all secondary, because I got to tell you, I am a firm believer of building a friendship first, and I am so engaged in making the relationship work as far as being friends with people, and she is too, and that's rare nowadays. That is so rare. I'm telling you. Matter of fact, this might be the first time in my life that I've actually had a symbiotic friendship like this with a woman so quickly. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted people to put that out there real quick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, congratulations, and hopefully, well, I can hope it goes where I'm hoping it goes.
And this is what I put on here. People, by the way, people tripped out. I said she's MAGA, kind of, sort of. She said she's Latina, which somebody had said, well, why would you put out she's Latina? What if she was white? Are you prejudiced against white women? And I'm like, let's go with that, I guess. I don't. What the hell kind of comment is that? I have a preference, okay? Big deal. I happen to like Latino women. Is that a big deal? I actually like black women too. People are like, oh, you're just saying that because because you're just trying to, what does it say? Oh, I have a black friend, I have a Latina friend. No, everybody knows me, knows this in my whole life. But anyways, she's got an education. She likes my shows. I don't think she's watched a Non-Sequitur show yet. I don't know. She watched my other channel. But if she does ever watch this, which I'm sure she will, she doesn't have a dick, which I think is pretty important nowadays. So whatever. But anyways, she's a lovely woman. And I asked her, I said, do you really care if I talk about you at all? She's like, not in the least. That means something to me. She doesn't give a shit. I don't give a shit. It's like, I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm not here for anybody else to run my life for me. I've learned this. I have. And it's the most freeing and liberating thing I could ever hope for. Again, because it really, and I don't mean to be disparaging to her, but it doesn't really matter what happens between her and I going forward. If I know this now, that there's people like her out there. And I like that. So I hope that makes sense. So anyways, that's let's dive into this real quick. So I am Mickey Cage out there. Glad to see you back, Steve. How are you, man? I thought you stopped following me a while back. I thought you stopped following me. Maybe not. I don't know. But if you did, it's okay. Look, if there's anybody that stopped following me and they want to come back and they didn't do anything to harm me or the people that I love, then I'm welcome for that. I'm not saying like Cage did, but I'm saying in general, because there's always that line of demarcation once you cross that Rubicon that there's no coming back from. You know as well as I do, right, Dave? That just
yes,
yeah, okay. So I'm gonna get your views on these things. So Rex says there are some things that aren't subject to compromise. Masked armed men in armed vehicles abducting individuals to the street and flying them to other countries is unacceptable and unlawful. It's never happened. I've never seen that happen. What you have people that are federal agents acting upon a judicial warrant to go remove somebody who has deportation orders from our country, which has been around. These rules have been around for a very long time. These are nothing. Trump did not create any legislation. Well, I was saying Congress didn't create any legislation when it came to immigration. They haven't changed anything. All they've done is literally just use the laws that are out there. And so my response to it would be this has never happened. What do you think?
Yeah, and notice how they describe it in like the most general possible way, so as to not give any details about what's going on. The left is like actually averse to describing things as clearly and accurately as possible, so as instead to like try to spin it in the most manipulative way possible. When you describe it actually as accurately as you can, then it sounds like what's happening is not actually that bad. And to your point, I mean, yeah, it's just enforcing immigration law, right? You want the law changed, then you elect someone who will change the law. That's how this works, right? This is a democratic republic. The laws as they currently stand are just being enforced. That's literally all that's going on.
100%. Now it says without due process. And I got to tell you, that is one of the most misunderstood statements that I've ever heard. Let me make it very clear, and look, people could agree or disagree, but I'm just telling you, if you actually go read the law, the literature, everything on this, due process basically is that you cannot be, can't have your liberty, freedom, or property taken away from you without having a chance to be heard. And this is not what happened. If they've already have deportation orders, then an Article 2 immigration court has already, through a judicial process, determined that they are not supposed to be in the country. That's their due process. That's it. The due process is done. If ICE has gone on a judicial warrant to go pick somebody up, the due process is over at that point. And I don't understand how they don't understand that, Dave.
Yeah, the left just doesn't get what due process is, as you're pointing out. It's for citizens, right? Like, I mean, people who... Well,
there's some. I mean, let's clarify. Even people that are here illegally, there's a minimal amount of due process, but it's not the same as the fully protected constitutional rights of an American citizen. That's one of the benefits of becoming a citizen.
Right. Well, so that's the key point I was driving at. But like, get this, right? So they'll say, well, without due process, right? Maybe you find out that the person wasn't here illegally or whatever. Okay. But then like they'll try to apply this to Trump, bombing the cartels and stuff, and be like, well, he bombed them without due process. Like, I'm sorry.
Right? That's weird. I've seen that on Twitter, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
When do terrorists get due process?
Right, exactly. I've never heard this before. This is new to me too. There's no correlation between due process and having a war against terrorism when it comes to the cartels, which, especially with Venezuela, because of an illegitimate president they have. That's up to the military. That is a military level thing. That has nothing to do with the American citizen and due process. Nothing. Now there's rules of engagement, but that's a whole different ballgame. But they have the intel on these people. They know that these boats are delivering narcotics to our country. And that intel is what they act on. They don't capture these people to try them. That's not how it works. That's never how it works. I've been military. I've been on law enforcement operations. I've been on drug interdiction things of that nature. No, I tell you what. If you go on one of these ships and they're hostile, we will blow them out of the water without even a second thought. That's the military.
And that's, by the way, precisely how it should be, right? Swift and lethal action against people like that. I mean, you really want this, like, the defense of the country to be like get bogged down with a bunch of red tape? I mean, my goodness.
We couldn't survive.
I know. We can never get anything done if in response to like a full-fledged invasion on our country, and we have to go through all of this, red tape just to defend ourselves. It's unbelievable. That and do you ever notice they're like why are they sticking up for the terrorists? Why are they sticking up for MS-13 gang members? Why are they picking the absolute worst battles to fight? It's just
I know exactly why, because they have nothing else of substance on the arguments, and they've already had the propagandized machine out there, right? Because the Democratic Party has already had, starting with like Arctic Frost, the ability to go and spy on the American citizen, right? What started off as, Jack Smith's fake elector scandal, with Trump, we found out now it was a completely fabricated investigation. And matter of fact, the courts even said that Smith had no right to be even a special investigator on this. There was nothing to be had. And then they weaponized it. They weaponized the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA in order to investigate Trump. And along with that, anybody that seemed to support him, which include, by the way, Turning Point USA from Charlie Kirk's organization. There's definitely I'm not going to go on record to say that the government assassinated Charlie Kirk, but I will tell you that money-wise, I think there is definitely some correlation between the assassination and people in government, whether it be the intelligence communities or Congress, that whether they knew about it directly, still funneled, or at least somehow contributed to it. Does that make sense?
No, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if that comes out, and I do hope the FBI keeps investigating it to get to the bottom of what happened there. It could be as simple as it appears, but by all means, look into it.
Correct. And by the way, Rex, the courts have already determined these things as far as the constitutionality with due process. So it's not based on the Constitution. You got to remember, the Constitution is a foundation, but there's been statutory laws, since then. And the reason why is because the immigration court, it falls under Article 2 powers, not Article 3 judicial powers. They're part of the executive branch. This is why they took the courts away from the judicial branch, because I'm telling you, the judicial branch is the weakest of all three branches by design. Okay, it is supposed to be the weakest of three branches. They don't have the military to enforce their rule, right? They're basically just applying the laws and interpreting them as the way Congress wrote them, which have been voted on by the American people. What the people want, right? And so when it's talking about the constitutional protections, the immigration courts have already decided, the Supreme Courts have already decided that people that are here illegally do have some constitutional protections, but they're not to the same level as an established American citizen. They're not here legally. They don't get the same, due process that we get. They're here illegally. They get a hearing. They say, okay, why are you here illegally? And they tell them to leave if they're here illegally. And if they don't self-deport themselves, then that's when ICE will go in on a judicial warrant and remove them, because it's already been just adjudicated.
And by the way, people don't get this is incredibly normal. That countries deport people that are within their borders illegally. Everyone does this. I don't get the outrage at that the United States would be doing this too. That's exactly what you would expect, right? Somebody's within your borders who's not there legally, not supposed to be there. You put them back where they belong. This is common sense. Everyone does it, but because nobody whined and complained about it when Obama did it, but because or Biden, right? Obviously, we know it wasn't as aggressive under Biden as it clearly should have been. But yes, when the people they like were doing it, there wasn't this outrage about it. Deporting people who are in your country illegally is incredibly normal, and everyone does it. There should be no outrage.
Correct. Real quick, so NCG Studios out there, he says, keep up the good work, Steve. Absolutely, my friend. Dr. Jones and that group over there, great channel. If you haven't checked it out, NGC Studios, love their stuff. So I've always thanked him for his support. Let's see here. So Rex actually says all three branches of the government were intended to be equal. That's not necessarily true. They're only intended to be equal as far as checks and balances. But as far as power, the judicial branch, the Article 3 powers are the weakest. This is a fact. There's no way you can get around that. One, because you have core plenary powers for Article 2, and for Article 1, Congress makes the courts, right? The district courts. And they could defund the entire judicial system and start from scratch if they want to. They would basically defund districts, and you would have a district judge that has no fiefdom to reign over. So where's their power from? They're not equal when it comes to that, nor are they supposed to be by design, because they did not want independent judicial judges overruling the president of the United States, was a democratically elected president, because the judges are appointed by the president. They're not, or by somebody else, but they're not voted on. So there's no way to remove them by impeachment if there's no accountability for them. So because we have to find a way to get rid of them, right? We have to find a way to say, okay, look, you've always stepped your boundaries. We're going to remove you from the bench, but we can't do that by voting. So how do they do that? Well, by Article 1 and Article 2 powers.
Yeah, it's almost like the founding fathers knew what they were doing.
Yeah, right. And by the way, I don't know if you would agree, but I tend to what's called to be a contextualist when it comes to the Constitution. I do think that we do read the Constitution rather literally, but there's also a small degree of flexibility there because it's a living document as far as our society, but not so far like Sotomayor when she considers it to be a living document. This is how we get extreme liberalism out there. And I'm just totally against that. I definitely go to the original text. I wouldn't say that I'm a textualist, but I do think that I would tend to being a person who reads the document as it's intended as much as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have an issue, if I were to say it's a living and breathing document, what I would mean by that is that it can be changed by constitutional
by
amendments,
the people,
right? Adding something, repealing something like that. But yeah, it doesn't mean that you can apply whatever wild modernist interpretation you want to what the original framers and then.
But that's what they do.
Of course,
they're not changing. When's the last time they changed the Constitution, right? Matter of fact, congressional laws don't even change that much. So they're trying to provide these nationwide preliminary injunctions, which was not the original intent of the district courts. And these are lawfare, absolutely lawfare. This is why you've seen 21 cases go in front of the Supreme Court where they've sided with Trump, the appeals courts siding with Trump, and the ones that don't side with Trump get overridden by the Supreme Court. So there's a lot of judicial warfare going on when it comes to that. And I think a lot of people are brainwashed to believe that these immigrants that come over here illegally get the same protections. They don't. I'm sorry. It's just you could believe that, but in reality, by the way the system has always been set up, that's never been the case.
Yeah, citizens have rights that non-citizens don't. I mean, it's amazing that you have to explain basic stuff like this.
Well, because they don't teach civics any longer.
No, this is true. I mean, the whole education system. I mean, you and me both know this, that they really should probably be like teaching logic and probably introductory philosophy and then, actually useful stuff. But
I just said that the other day. Yeah, I think that it should be a core. Go back to starting with Aristotelian philosophy. I think that students...
It'd be a lot more useful than having, a drag queen story hour or whatever other nonsense they're trying to do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, that's all that time wasted on, LGBTQ plus indoctrination. And again, let me make it very clear. Nobody's saying anything about people's sexual preferences or rights to live their lives the way they want. I literally couldn't care a shit if somebody's gay or straight. To me, I think it's ridiculous somebody would base their identity on that. I don't get it. I don't walk around going, I'm a proud straight man. It's just who I am. I don't care if somebody's gay. So what? Big deal. Nobody cares. And society got to that point where they said, nobody cares. But the left had to make it an issue. And they unfortunately got hooked onto this whole transgenderism movement, which is ontologically, incorrect as far as our understanding of biology and metaphysics. It doesn't make any sense, right? So they latched onto that, and they spent more time talking to students about that stuff than stuff that could actually help them, like you said, critical thinking. And I've noticed this. It is the truth that our educational system has been infected by the most radical Marxism I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. I mean that's one reason why I don't really have any interest in putting my kids in public school until things are changing.
I wouldn't do it again. I definitely think that we should, until the public school system gets fixed. I mean, we started with defunding the Department of Education. That was the best thing we could have ever done. That was pure indoctrination. We all know this. It should be at the state level, and I believe that it should be tailored to the constituents of those communities, because I mean, let's be realistic. If you're in Silicon Valley, then you might want to take some courses in computer programming and things that will help you in technology. But if you're living in Montana, you might want to focus more on agriculture. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah, obviously there's some stuff that needs to be taught across the board, reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? But there obviously are going to be things that are more specific to particular communities. And so, yeah, absolutely, there should be flexibility there to teach the people in that community, right, the upcoming generation, what they will need to know. And obviously, this goes back to the point I was making earlier about that also is helping people learn to be functional parts of a society instead of being this sort of atomized, almost automaton that it feels like the left is trying to turn us all into.
Yeah, and it's a shame, too, because I've seen it happen with people that I care about. They just refuse to listen. And where do you go from that? I just hope that one day, I've had people message me. I swear to God, dude, people message me. I'm not going to obviously, say who it was, or it doesn't really matter, but somebody that had followed me for a very long time, educated person. I'll say that they were a science person, a scientist, geologist, and they messaged me and they said, hey Steve, man, I think you're great. Always been, always been friendly to me, always, treated me okay, but you support MAGA and Trump now, and I'm afraid of what's going to happen with the Veterans Administration. And I said, well, wait a minute here. I'm a veteran. I'm not even remotely concerned about it. He's like, well, the cuts, this, and I'm like, do you understand what the cuts actually are? The cuts have to do with like things like getting more up to date, more modernized, so they don't have to have so many people wasting their time taking phone calls for people rather than doing the legwork to taking care of the veterans. It's not about benefits. No veterans losing any benefits. But they were so brainwashed by the media to think that, oh my God, they're going after the VA because that's what they were telling people, which was complete BS. And they blocked me. They blocked me for it, dude. They blocked me. I'm like, really? Okay, what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, you can't reason with people who aren't interested in having their narrative challenged. Because that's really, people need to get more comfortable with the idea of that people disagree with you, right? And that's the way it's always been, right? That's the whole reason politics is a thing, is precisely because we don't all agree on things. And so our system of government is sort of set up that what most people want, right, what we can get the most agreement on, that's what we're going to sort of gear society towards. But it's predicated on that disagreement is a thing. And people just don't know how to do that anymore, right? I made a post about this not too long ago, that we spent so long teaching people to just not have conversations about politics and religion, right? We told people, don't talk about stuff like that, that we were losing the ability to have those conversations now. People don't know how to rationally disagree with one another. And so that's why we're getting all this, name calling and polarization, because people just, they haven't gotten over it, right? I mean, we know that we sort of naturally are uncomfortable with disagreement as human beings. Our brain is sort of like wired to go into fight or flight mode. We literally respond the same way to disagreements, or someone who like strongly disagrees with us. We go into flight or flight mode, right? We have the exact same reaction that we would have if we were actually being physically attacked. You have the same sort of brain reaction, and you have to be trained to get over that. But instead of training people and incentivizing people to get over that, we haven't done that. And so now people are just completely irrational and can't handle disagreement. So I do think we need to see a return to sort of a value of sort of rational debate, and I mean, I understand that, there's just some people you can't debate with because they got no interest. But I just mean, as a society, we need to return to seeing the value in that.
Right. I agree. A perfect example would be, this guy Rex in my live chat. He says, I pity you both for drinking the Kool-Aid. I got to tell you, I don't think people understand what Kool-Aid is, because Kool-Aid makes you, just like the things that come easy, that it's so easy. I got to tell you, the things that Dave and I read, not easy stuff to understand, bro. Okay, especially Dave. He's like legit into this stuff. I'm just an amateur. I'm just a lay armchair philosophy guy that has knowledge of some certain subjects because I had some education. I have about 4 years of college. This guy is it's gonna be a PhD coming up. This guy's smart. Okay, so there's no Kool-Aid to be had there, and so he says you have confidently made several incorrect statements. I hope you realize it one day. Well, here's the thing. We haven't. You can go investigate these things. I really do hope people go look into these things, because we really haven't. But if you think so, you're welcome to that belief. The difference is, I'm not going to advocate for your assassination or block somebody because of their political beliefs. It's never happened. Never would happen. It's just insanity. That's the difference between us and them.
And the other thing, too, if you think we're wrong, I mean, show it. Just saying, you're wrong about this, right? I hope you wake up to that someday. Look, we can make the exact same patronizing comments about you, right? This works both ways. And that's why you don't make progress that way. This is why I'm an evidentialist, right? The facts don't lie. So if you think I'm wrong, bring it, right? I mean, I'm happy to shift my opinion based on the evidence. I've done it many times. It's not something, I'm new to doing. I don't do it as, often now as I did when I was first, starting to get into, more academic studies. I attribute that to the fact that I think I just, believe a lot more true things now than I did starting out. But I mean, here and there, I still have to change my mind on things. So, Steve and I are not we're not immobile, right? We're not just married to this ideology just because. We have reasons for it.
And we concluded it.
Right. We're the ones open to talking about it. Like, look, here was our chain of reasoning for how we got here.
Correct.
Do you have a similar chain of reasoning that, that brought you to where you're at? And then we can try to poke holes there. But they can't do that. They just want to say, oh, this is my position. They're like the presuppositional apologists. They're just assuming that's right. And they can't get out of that bubble.
Oh my God, you've really hit the nail on the head on that, because it ties back to our love for epistemology, and that when you have epistemic justifications to derive at a conclusion based upon a reasonable premises and a reasonable argument, you and I can say, look, this is where we started. We started with our premises, and literally, I'm talking about foundational premises, popularly basic beliefs. We'll get back into that topic one of these days. I love that topic. And then we derive conclusions based upon those properly basic beliefs through reasonable inference. I could tell you, Dave, I have not seen anybody from the far left being able to explain to me their epistemic justifications and exactly what you said, those chains of reasons to get them where they're going. Not one. To get to the conclusion they have.
When you have that and you focus on it, it becomes a lot easier to have the conversations, right? I can see precisely where you're getting, right? That's the proverbial premises in your argument. And I can talk about, or maybe I think that one's reasonable. Maybe I think the inference you're making here is a little bit dubious. We can look at the process. It makes it so much easier to have the conversations. We don't have to be combative. We don't have to just be I'm not going to talk about my reasons for this because, I'm scared that you might show that they're not good or something like that. It invites the sort of open-mindedness that we would want in a free society.
And by the way, I don't see him asking for a link, right? So, he's welcome to come in and discuss those things. Again, I'm not interested in a debate. And I want to make this very clear. I could change my mind on factual issues that I have incorrect understanding of. That's fine, right? But I'm not going to debate on some fundamental things. What I want is for us to explain things to other people, which is exactly what the show was designed for in the beginning. In a very creative and a very fun kind of way. Obviously, we have a much more serious things that have happened in our society that I think takes precedence, but that ability to at least have a conversations is still there for people that, as Dave said, are willing to explain to us their reasoning to get to the conclusions that they're at. Because I guarantee it, and I've asked these questions before, if you think you know what you're talking about, and again, I'm not saying that I do or that Dave does, but if you think that you do, then when I ask you a question and you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, I don't understand how you got to your conclusions if you're not informed enough to understand that there's major holes in your epistemology there, okay? And by the way, we'll have a lawyer on tomorrow, I think we're planning. And who's a deist, which is interesting enough. And so I'm hoping I can have a show tomorrow. I'm gonna try to do a non-sequitur show a week, and I guess I'm getting a camera. But yeah, so I have a lawyer coming on tomorrow, Rex. If you want to talk about Constitution, he's pretty well versed in it. I've talked to him about constitutional law, and it's kind of fun. So, real quick, I do want to touch on something before we kind of go too further. It's been an hour. I do want to keep the shows down to an hour and a half. Dave and I could probably talk all day. But I do want to bring up something about Charlie Kirk, if that's okay. We could. Yeah. You and I could talk for a long time. So there's a lot of misquotes out there by Kirk. And again, I don't want to get into the politics of that because I don't think it's really important. What I think is important is that the left has been willfully and vilifying Charlie Kirk deceitfully. Not a matter of, oh, hey, I don't agree with him because, he's a theist and I'm not, or, he believes in family, whatever. I don't. I do. But I'm saying that the left doesn't like that. It's a matter of they have gone out of their way to willfully mislead people on his quotes and his understanding of philosophy, which is something, again, that you and I both like. So I wanted to touch on this with you. One of the biggest and egregious quote minings that I've seen so far, and there's been quite a few of them, there's been two that I really kind of want to touch on. One, civil rights, and two, empathy. So what do you want to start with first, empathy or civil rights, Dave?
Well, we can go with the empathy one first. Let me just say, starting out to preface this, one of the most influential sort of quotes that I read early on in doing my own studies on things was a quote from Roger Olson where he said, before you say I disagree, make sure you can say I understand. And typically, if you see a quotation from somebody where they just said something that seems absolutely awful, you need to have like developed this sort of skepticism about, okay, like particularly if it's a very short quote, right? Like, is there going to be context here that contextualizes this? What's being left out? You got to be sensitive to that kind of stuff because we just know it's very easy to misrepresent somebody's words by taking something, snippet what they said, right? Putting ellipses in there. There's all kinds of ways where it's very easy to misrepresent what someone says, sometimes just fabricating what they said altogether. So don't be too quick to believe these sorts of things when you just see like a snapshot quotation from somebody. But yes, with that being said, we can go on to the empathy quotation.
Absolutely right. And it's funny because, you know, the media is, I don't know what's worse, contributing a false quote to somebody, or decontextualizing the actual quote where it's not even remotely the meaning of what they had intended. One is this an outright lie. The other one is a pernicious. It's so duplicitous because they know what they're doing, right? They know the whole quote. Some of them, what they hope is that the people that hear these quotes, even if they go look into it, don't have the understanding of what is really being said. So let's talk about the empathy quote. So, you know, long story, people know, he basically said that, you know, he doesn't like empathy. And I'm not gonna put up the whole quote. Everybody, you can go find it. But basically, it's that he doesn't like empathy. He thinks it's a made-up New Age term. And let me give my view on it real quick, and then I want you to give me your view, because Dave and I have not discussed this, so we're really coming to this very independent of each other. I'm kind of curious if we've reached the same conclusions for the same reasoning. But the way I interpret his meaning, and I've looked into this, and I've read, you know, Thomas Sowell, who wrote a brilliant book called Disparagement and Discrimination and Disparities, right? And it was all about the unintended consequences of things. And it dived into what's called disparate impact theory. And this is what he was talking about. He was talking about, on a metaphysical sense, that the empathy that we have for people is not real empathy. What it is, it's basically a trying to understand, but it is something that can be weaponized against them, because really what it is sympathy. We don't have the ability to like jump into somebody's mind and feel their qualia or their sense data. That it is completely epistemically off limit to us. We can't do it. We can relate because we have our own understanding of things and say, look, I sympathize with you because I wouldn't want this done to me. But the term empathy, and it was John Foley on the other day that pointed this out, and the way he explained it, and I don't know where he got it from, but I think it's actually right though, that is akin to telekinesis. It would be like, look, I cannot read your mind. I can understand that you have subjective thoughts. You have a conscious. You have a internal monologue, or most people do. I can understand that your thought process and your consciousness is going to be very similar to mine, because the only thing I have to draw upon as far as evidentialism, because I know you like that, is my own sense. That's what he was trying to relate to people. He was trying to relate, look, it's not really empathy, because empathy can be used by the left as weaponized empathy, but how are you going to empathize sympathy? And so there's an unintended consequence of well, you know, that really goes more to some other things he said, but there's still that unintended consequence that when he says something, he knows that people are going to probably take it and misunderstand it, but he also knows that people like you and I are going to go look into it and go, yeah, you know what, maybe he has a point here. He gets a discussion going, because how many people have even read that book, right?
Right. Yeah, my take on this particular quote is that, well, so first of all, look at the way, like, what is the intention you're supposed to get from seeing the sort of just snipped portion that the left was sharing all over the place? It was typically in the context of, so this turns up after he's been killed, right? People are mourning the death of Charlie Kirk, and you've got a bunch of leftists online who are celebrating it, thinking it's the greatest thing ever. Of course, you've got conservatives, or, you know, just people with any smidgen of decency saying, like, look, you shouldn't be celebrating a murder like this. So the counter then, this is sort of when the quote resurfaced. And it's like, well, why should we have any, why should we care, right? Why should we have any sort of respect for the guy? Because look what he said. He said empathy is it's a bad thing, right? And so that's the impression, like that's the dialectical context and then the impression that the quote's being used for. The problem is if you go to like the very next sentence after where they always cut it off, is he says he prefers the term sympathy instead of empathy. So he's not saying that we can't have these sorts of feelings for other people who, have come into misfortune or whatever. So he's not saying that it's inappropriate to feel anything for people. He's making a syntactical point about, or I guess I could say I think it's a metaphysical point myself, but okay. I was taking it as a semantic point about sort of the words, but I mean, yes, obviously that's being brought in from the metaphysical point there about like what do the words actually mean. What he isn't saying is that you can't have these sorts of feelings for people when they fall into misfortune, which is precisely how the left was trying to use the quotation. And the very next sentence, right where they cut it off, makes that explicitly clear. So, I mean, yes, it's just flagrant misrepresentation.
He also said compassion too. I mean, if I had said, "Hey, Dave, this guy believes in sympathy and compassion," you'd be like, "Man, what a great guy," right? But they don't tell people that Charlie Kirk had compassion for people. And if you watch his videos, you know that he did. I mean, I watched one where the guy was this guy. Hey, well, I'm a gay man. Would I be welcome in MAGA? And he said, well, first of all, why do you identify with any particular sexuality? Why does it matter? That's between you and whoever else. It's like, I don't have to agree, because he's, Christian and he may not agree with the homosexual lifestyle, but he's like, but it wouldn't matter because you're not who you sleep with. You're not who you are attracted to. Sure, it's part of your identity, but is that really all that makes you you? And he said, if you believe the same ideals of MAGA, which is to get our country back on track and away from this radicalization and away from these violent nut jobs and lunatics and misinformation and the deep state, because there is such a thing, then yeah, welcome with open arms. Why would MAGA care anything about the things that the identity politics cared about? It doesn't matter whether you're black, doesn't matter whether you're white, it doesn't matter whether you're Asian, it doesn't matter whether you're Latina, it doesn't matter whether you're gay or straight, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of trans people that are MAGA, right? I follow a couple of them. It makes no difference. What we're talking about is the ideology, and because MAGA is a ideology, it really is. It's just like anything else, but it's a benevolent one that says, look, our country has gone to such extremes that we need to do something because we've gone past the point of no return, or almost have. I don't think we've gone over the edge, but we were getting damn close.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree with that. I don't, and so in that sense, I guess I've been saying I don't actually consider myself MAGA, but by that definition, I would actually.
I do. I'm not going to attribute a label to you, but I know your positions. You're about as MAGA as you get, whether you take the label or not. I didn't for a while because I was like, I don't want to be like, labeled. Then, but after a while, I'm like, why do I care? I mean, like I said, now I don't give a crap. I mean, so I think that people should adopt the label if they really do believe those things, and it's just telling people that, look, I want to have a country where I can express my beliefs and not have to worry about being assassinated. That's like a big thing. Come on. Do you think that anybody deserves to be assassinated because they had a different belief, no matter how bad you think they are? Even if everything they thought about Charlie was correct, which is not, I still think it's abysmal that you have people like Destiny and Piker, Piker going out there and advocating for the murder of capitalists, murder of people that just had a different belief. And I've had Destiny on this channel, I think twice. I had a debate with Ian Miles Chung and him, and I'm going to go back and listen to that debate. It was like 6 years ago, because I want to see if really my beliefs have really changed that much, because I just don't think they have. But I was warning people about Destiny ages ago that dude has a problem. There's something wrong with him mentally when he's advocating for that.
We've been seeing it come out more and more. Obviously, he was basically saying he didn't care that the one firefighter was killed in Butler, Pennsylvania, with the assassination attempt on Trump. Obviously, we've seen it with Charlie Kirk when he was on, Piers Morgan's show not that long ago, and Destiny refused to even condemn it. I mean, obviously he's got other issues coming out as well, obviously with his, sexual.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
So I mean, the guy has royally fucked his life up. But
I would say so.
Yeah, some of it I think is he just got so rich and so used to saying edgy stuff as he probably got to the point that he thought he was basically untouchable. I'm glad to see that he's not.
Absolutely, and Adderall or acetaminophen. I mean, assuming he's either taking Adderall or methamphetamine, because that dude he's gurning, he's jawing. People moving their jaw. We know that person is on drugs. I mean, you just know that's a telltale sign. And then the over the top histrionic type personality where he's advocating for conservatives to be scared to go to events. I mean, it's untenable. But anyways, John, welcome.
Evening. Good luck with that, Destiny.
Yeah. Well, he already lost the platforms, right? He lost Twitter or Twitch a long time ago, and he just got demonetized on YouTube. Now the next thing I think is Kirk.
Well, I mean, the guy who my sister fucks when she wants to feel like a real man wants us to be scared when we go to events. Really? Good luck with that, Destiny. Really.
Yeah, I don't live in fear of that. I got attacked for my political beliefs or whatever. I mean, I'm ex-military, so I mean, we are not going to cower to that kind of stuff.
He forgot that we're the conservatives. We believe in the Second Amendment.
Yeah, exactly. We fight back. We're damn right.
But the crazy thing is, like, he's like the reason that he is allowed to say what he says is because we let him. Like, the people on the right, the conservatives, the reason that other people have power, have political will, isn't because we have a set of principles. It's not because we can't stop you. It's not because it's because we have a set of principles that we live by, and we allow you to have that power. We allow you to live the life the way that you want to live your life. If we wanted to subjugate you, if we wanted you to live the way we want you to live, you wouldn't have the opportunity. The reason democracy exists is because those of us with power, i.e., those of us that are competent, those of us with the capacity, let you. So,
that's exactly true.
Please,
it's exactly true.
For the love of Christ, continue letting us let you, because if you keep doing this, we're going to fucking stop letting you.
Well, I think we've already stopped. I think we're at the point now, John. And again, it's not radicalization; it's self-defense at this point. I think we've reached the tipping point. We've gone over that tipping point. That the power is in with the president of the United States. He's a democratically elected leader under a constitutional republic to represent the will of the people, and the will of the people voted in Trump twice. And I think that if he were to run again, he would win in an absolute major landslide. Now, the lawyer that I may have on, hopefully tomorrow, we're going to talk about that legal loophole about running in. Do I think he's going to run again? No. Okay. But I think he wants to retire, and I think he would have been retired. He even said he would have been retired had they not had political interference with the 2020 election, which we know now is a fact, but we'll discuss those things in future episodes. But you're exactly right, John. We allowed the people to have their political views, which they absolutely should. But society needs to realize that there's consequences for those actions. There's consequences for those positions. That's what we're saying.
I think it's like what we're saying quite a lot at the moment is that, like, Jimmy Kimmel, that fucking lunatic, obviously had his show cancelled, and everybody's like on the left is going, "Oh, I thought you believed in freedom of speech." It's like, I do. My principle of freedom of speech is very important to me. I hold it near and dear to my heart. It is something that is incredibly important. Freedom of speech, freedom of association. The problem that I have is, like, how tolerant am I supposed to be? At what point am I going to tolerate myself to death? Like, this is a principle that I hold, but clearly you don't, as a person who is on the extreme left. because you were prepared to murder a person and advocate for the murder of a person who all they were doing was using their free speech on a college university campus that was supposed to be the bastion, like the place that where we could like extol this virtue,
right?
have these discussions. I'm like, you're now telling me that because of my speech, I can be murdered. And you are going to retrospectively justify it, even if you wouldn't actually do it yourself. I'm like,
Well,
I hold this.
They're one step closer, though. My view is that if they're trying to justify it, they're one more step closer to actually committing something like that than any one of us three. No, we would never even consider. It would never be something that would be a normal person's consideration to say, I don't like what you're saying, I'm going to have to cause you harm. But it starts off with people, getting upset and getting in fist fights, and I get people get pushed. I understand Buttons gets pushed, just fighting words. I understand that, but that's about the extent of it. But to say that you say something to me and I think that you deserve to die for it, there's a problem there.
I think we can completely understand that there is a distinction. Like, say, for argument's sake, with Charlie Kirk, for example, let's say, and I get it as well. If I was having a discussion with somebody, and we went down a particular rabbit hole that was very upsetting for them. Let's say, for argument's sake, we were talking about like abortion with regards to grape babies.
No, you know what? No, the word is rape, and I'm gonna not. I know, John. I know you're doing it for the monetization. I know you're doing it for that. I don't care about the algorithm. I don't care about any of that shit. What I care about is that we actually start explaining to people things, and it's not disparaging, but the word is rape, and rape should not be downplayed. It is a horrifying, repulsive thing that happens in society, and this is why, again, when people start talking about EJ Carroll and Trump, he's a rapist, all this other shit, it says bullshit. We already know. We know the case. We know. I mean, I've read the transcripts. I've listened to her testimony. I've listened to his testimony. It's absolutely says bullshit. I can't even begin to describe you. And it's nothing to do with Trump. Yeah. It's like if it was anybody else. If you were the one that she accused us of, it's absolute bullshit. 100%, right? And they've already determined that the monetary winnings were a violation of his Eighth Amendment because it was just unreasonable. What it was a way to weaponize the judicial system by creating a new law, a new thing, an Adult Survivors Victims Act that she was the first person to use, and it expired 12 months later. It was completely weaponized politically. I would say attempted political assassination of what it was. So
yeah, feel
free to use the word rape because I want people to realize that word should be considered to be repugnant the way it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, they artificially extended the statute of limitations in this particular case in order to
correct
Trump. It's completely ridiculous. And obviously there are.
It was because it was Trump. No other reason. They did not want him to get back in power.
It's the same with his other convictions as well, like the 34 criminal indictment. Fuck off! Just really, nobody else on the face of the planet has ever been. Well, actually, there's only one other person who I know who has been targeted in a similar manner, and that was in the UK, and that is a guy called Tommy Robinson.
Who's just free.
Yeah, his fraud charges. Where he was charged with quote unquote mortgage fraud, where he was the guarantor on the mortgage, and it was somebody else that committed the fraud.
Right,
he wasn't involved in the actual fraud at all. It was his cousin who technically.
If you're a guarantor, you're not between the primary principles of the contract.
Exactly, it's totally insane. Totally insane.
Real quick. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
No. Well, you notice John's across the pond. He has a much more lag than I got, like with Dave. Don't worry, Dave. I'm going to get you back in here in a second. Real quick, but Zebulon said, did Kimmel not say Kirk was done by MAGA? Yeah, well, initially, right there, Jimmy Kimmel lied to his audience to try to spin the narrative, which we already knew. Anybody who's been following the investigation, we already knew that he was a far left shootist. He was part of Antifa discourse. He had a trans boyfriend. He had under the furry community. Not to degrade, I do know some people in the furry community that are just not that radical, but the radical ones have some weird freaking beliefs. But here, real quick, two things. Let me just finish real quick. Two things were the reason why he was canceled. And I'm tired of people saying that it had anything to do with Trump. It didn't. Two factors. One, His ratings were in the shitter, and they've been going down for ages because people just stopped listening to him because they recognized that he was lying to people. And two, and he was just not watchable, wasn't funny. And two, he violated 47 CFR 73.1217, broadcasting hoaxes. Because what people don't understand is that ABC is a broadcast network. It's not cable. They fall under the FCC rules and regulations, standard and practices. And you don't have the same freedom of speech that you have when you're broadcasting things. This is because they don't want people to be propagandized through the airwaves. But that's exactly what he was doing.
I think the thing that pissed me off the most about that was when he referenced, like when he played the clip of Trump, which was when Trump was being asked, like, oh, and how are you feeling now? Like, how are you feeling? It's like, firstly, there was no reference to Charlie Kirk in the question.
Oh, I saw that, right? Yeah.
And secondly, he was like under the rotors of like Marine One. Like,
it was a gotcha moment, just like the
it was a complete gotcha moment. I mean, like, and he just gave a canned answer. He was like, oh yeah, like, look at what we're doing here. We're building. We're making things better. We're making things. It was just it was a generic. If you don't hear the question, yeah, I'm doing good. By the way, here's what we're doing that's positive for the country. We're building this. We're building that. We're building the other. And the response from the left was like zero empathy, completely zero empathy. Like it.
But they did because they try to decontextualize it, right?
But it's also the case that this is a guy who, whilst I completely like Charlie Kirk,
they were close because he told Charlie Kirk he could be a president one day.
Yeah, they were close, and Kirk, not just were they personally close, but politically they were close as well. Because obviously, there is no doubt that Charlie Kirk basically handed him the youth vote.
I agree.
He was completely responsible for that. So there is no way on this earth that Trump didn't appreciate who Charlie Kirk was and what he did for him. And so to ask him the generic question, how are you doing? Not how are you doing now you've heard about Charlie Kirk's death, but how are you doing? And then to directly relate it to Charlie Kirk. That would be like if one of my very best friends had been hit by a car yesterday, and I'd been asked how are you doing after like Dave was run over? How are you doing after Dave was run over? And then somebody I didn't know at all, who also didn't know Charlie Kirk, comes to me and goes, oh, how are you doing? Because I'm a Brit, I just go, oh yeah, I'm okay. Like, I wouldn't necessarily.
It's just a generic question.
This is a guy who is responsible for the running of the free world. Like, he doesn't get to be human. He's not allowed to be human in his day-to-day life. He has a million things that he's dealing with. And then you ask him that question and you expect him to just be a person, be a human. Like, on a
his words have more weight, right? Everything he says is going to be hyper scrutinized by the media. But okay, so go ahead and wrap this up.
And frankly, I don't want him to be a human. I want him to be a robot to a certain point, because I want him to be able to, like, like, let's say, like, some fucking lunatic in China decides to start pressing his buttons right now. I need him to be a robot a little bit, because I need him to not be driven by his emotions every single second of the day. Because if he was, we'd be at war every other afternoon.
And that's what I think is funny, because they always say, oh, well, you know, Trump gets so upset. And if you listen to Trump, he's very clear on this. He's like, I don't give a shit what people say about me. They can go fuck themselves. He's like, he has had more, he's had more negative publicity than anybody on the planet. The media has been against him from day one. 97 some odd % probably is against Trump, and he still won. Why is this? Oh, because the people don't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit. I don't give a shit. You don't give a shit. Dave doesn't give a shit. None of us give a shit about what the CNN or MSNBC spin is. We look at it and go, these people are stupid. These people are misleading people. We know why they mislead people. We know the backstory. We know the players. We know the journalists that have spouses and family in the political system that compromises them. We know this.
And we're capable of basic... Sorry, John.
Sorry, Dave. Yeah, go.
We're also capable of basic inductive reasoning. So, like, we know that CNN has a long track record of just lying, whereas Trump has a really good track record as a president. So, like, we know how to do inductive reasoning here.
Well, but here's the thing. They'll say, well, look at they'll say, oh, look at all the Trump lies from the first thing. By the way, I looked at a lot of those. I revisited some of them. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, maybe he wasn't actually telling the truth. And the way they twisted it. But since if we take a standpoint from the second presidency, right, Trump 2.0, I can't see anything that he said that would ever say would be an outright lie by any stretch of imagination. Has he said everything that's perfectly correct? No, but who does? But there's no principle of charity given to him any longer. But I got to tell you, I can't prove this, but I'm telling you, that man has got to have people in his administration that were PR people, and they went in and they went with a plan, and they also had people with the PR. But here's the thing. He also said he doesn't give a shit about that. But they probably told him, look, let's play by the rules. Let's be forthright and believe what you believe and put it out there, and fuck the politics. And that's what he did. And I think Trump 2.0 was a far better cry from Trump 4.1.
Well, I think Trump 2.0, when he came in the second time, he absolutely came in with a plan. Like, he came in like
they had 4 years plan.
Like a wrecking ball. He was like, they fucked me the first time. They're not going to get me the second time. This person coming in was it was the second business deal. You know, like he went into the first business deal as a
little naive. Yeah, he's a little politically naive. Yeah. We'll give him that. That's what I'm saying. The PR people and the other people, they trained him in the politics world, and he learned.
Yeah. And this is a guy who learns lessons, because if you don't learn your lesson, then your business is gone.
He's a businessman, not a politician.
He like literally ripped through them like a goddamn cannonball, and I love to see it.
It was glorious. It was glorious. It's funny because I did want him to burn the system to the ground when he got elected, but I thought it was going to be more of almost like a negative thing. But I'm telling you, I've been so impressed by what he's done and accomplished so far. That. Go ahead.
I think as well, like the people that are having a go at him because he's threatening like to have a third term essentially. I don't think he's thinking.
That's a troll. It's a massive troll. Even the White House press secretary said that's just one big troll, and I think it's hilarious. Now, in theory, he can't run again because you only can have 2 terms. But in theory, there is a loophole, which I'll be talking to a lawyer tomorrow on here, hopefully, that he could theory become president again, but it would require like Vance to run. He'd become vice president, and then Vance would step down. Yeah. There's a loophole for that. That is true. But why would he want to? He wants to retire. He's done.
I think he's. I and you and I did disagree here, Steve. Like we do disagree in that I do think Trump is a narcissist. I think he is.
Yeah, we do disagree. I think he has ego and pride, but I don't see any psychopathy based on my understanding of any form of narcissism whatsoever. I just think he's very, very driven.
But I also think he is a patriot. Oh, yeah. And I also think he's prepared. I think he's prepared to sacrifice for his country.
Well, then you just defeated your argument about narcissism. If he's willing to put the country ahead of himself, he can't be a narcissist, because a narcissist will always put themselves first. Inductive reasoning. Boom. QED. Dave's face. He's like, gotcha, man. Gotcha. That's critical thinking, by the way. I have a counter argument. Go ahead.
I think it depends on the axis on which you're viewing it. So, for example, I think he's a narcissist from the perspective of how people view him. Like
that's not narcissism, though. That's just misunderstanding. The man has how many assassination attempts? Narcissists aren't going to do that. They don't want. They're not there to do. So. But I do disagree. I think. Yeah, of course. That's fine. I'm not advocating for your political assassination because we disagree if Trump's a narcissist or not. That would be the far left, my friend. But I do got to move on a little bit.
You can get in line behind my wife. So
right. I got to touch on something else. So
yeah,
I'm going to cut you off. But
Okay.
We know much.
Sure.
We're already at 90
Sure.
minutes, but I got to touch on this before we close it out. So maybe 15 more minutes if Jay's out of time, because I got to get his view on this. So anyways, we were going to talk about civil rights. One of the other quotes that supposedly, is attributed to Charlie Kirk was basically that he thought that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake. What they don't tell you is what he was actually referring to and why, and that his beliefs on this were not something that he just came up with. He formulated his beliefs off the work of many other people. Whether you agree with them or not, I remember like Barry Goldwater, Strom Thurmond, and other people who had similar beliefs when it came to civil rights, but for different reasons maybe. But also, and Ayn Rand did too. But also, Thomas Sowell, who basically said, look, when we had the Civil Rights Act, and there's many parts of the Civil Rights Act that I think, absolutely made a lot of sense, especially coming out of Jim Crow era and segregation, that we would agree on different titles out of it, right? Because there's not just one part of the Civil Act. There's Title 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the biggest one that I think that Charlie Kirk had a problem with was with the Title 2, which was the public accommodations. A lot of people believe, and again, I'm not really into right now getting into the merits of this, whether we should or shouldn't, because I think that's a great discussion to be had, but it would take too long. So I don't want Dave to get bogged down with that. But I want Dave to talk about this as far as discrimination, and should a private business be regulated by the government, right? Because public accommodations is still a private business. If they don't want to cater to a certain group of people, does the government have a right to come in and tell them who to cater to or who not to? Now, I understand absolutely it's repugnant as that is. And again, I don't want to get to the debate of it, but if a group said, hey, look, I don't want white people in this group, in this business, should that business owner have the right to do that, right? And this was the actual argument. And the reason why the Supreme Court and other people said that basically they kind of do, although it could be changed, was, believe it or not, because of commerce. Because Clarence Thomas actually believes in this too. Clarence Thomas was against civil rights Title II for the same reasoning, because he believed that private businesses should emphasize their right to have a business the way they want to have run, free of overreaching judicial and legal consequences, because it's a private enterprise. It's not public. If it's a public enterprise, absolutely different, right? Public, yeah, we absolutely. If they said, look, you're white, we don't want you in here. You're black, we don't want you in here. You're gay, we don't want you in here. In a public domain, absolutely. But we're talking about private establishments. Let me finish real quick. So, the reason why was for commerce when it came to hotel accommodations and restaurants and things of that nature. Because if somebody goes from state to state and they go check into a hotel and they say, look, you're a Republican, I don't want to give you a stay here, it could be problematic, right? But my belief is that the way society rectifies those things is that you just don't frequent those places and let them burn to the ground on their own, right? Again, maybe I'm wrong, and again, I'm still weighing the pros and cons of this, because there's a legitimate argument to be had, and that's what Charlie Kirk was talking about. He was talking about, let's at least talk about it, because many people have brought this up, not just Charlie Kirk. Many important civil rights leaders have brought this up, that they didn't want businesses affected by the Civil Rights Act of 1964. What they wanted was public accommodations, not to be able to discriminate. And Dave, what do you think about that?
So, can I just clarify?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, of course.
So you're talking about the Ayn Rand approach on.
She did accept that. Yeah, she didn't want businesses to be regulated by that. Yeah, objectivism was part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Because so in the UK, for example, business we have something called the retailer's right to refuse service. So, for example, a retailer can refuse service based on certain principles.
We call it shopkeeper's privilege for the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. And those principles can be based on, for example, a point of principle. So Tommy Robinson can be refused service because Tommy Robinson is Tommy Robinson. He has a set of views that he has categorically stated. But you couldn't refuse Tommy Robinson's service because he is Irish, for example, because that's not within his control and it's an immutable characteristic. That would be prejudicial.
Somebody said my audio's a little off, so
So, for example, you could like if a black man came to your shop and he was well known for saying that I want to murder Whitey, then you could refuse him service, but you couldn't refuse him service just because he was black.
Yeah. And again, we have to be able to have the difficult discussions when it comes to repugnant concepts. Do I think it's repugnant to deny service to somebody based on their skin color? Absolutely repugnant. That business should be no. Here's the difference though, and then I do want Dave to get into this. The difference is I don't say go out and burn that business to the ground like the far left would. What I say is don't shop there, don't go there, don't buy their product. That's MAGA. That's normal. So that's the difference between somebody like myself, who I consider to be a normal, functional person in society, and MAGA, that I just wouldn't frequent that place, right? If I went to a business and they said, "Hey, you're white, I don't want you here," I'd be like, "Okay, fuck off. I'll go shop somewhere else." Right?
And I didn't want to step on your or Dave's toes. I was just curious to like nail down the principle, like the distinction between the UK and the US.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's based on common law. I'm pretty sure that shopkeeper's privilege is based on England common law. But anyways, Dave, what's your take on it?
Yeah, so my view would be that retailers, business owners, they should be free to hire who they want, and so that they shouldn't, like, if the business owner doesn't want to hire, let's say white people, then I don't think that they should have to. Now, there are some cases where I think that there's actually nothing wrong with that. In the case of, say it's a Chinese restaurant, right? And the person wants to hire only Chinese or at least like Asian people there. I don't actually have a problem with that.
Right, because it fits their business model.
Right. If I'm running a German restaurant, probably, the waiter, and it's like German, not just like German food, but like, it's like beer garden or, people in Lederhosen, what have you, probably like the waiter shouldn't be black. Right. So in that sort of situation, maybe you wouldn't hire a black person. Here's another example, right? Maybe I'm making a film, right, about medieval Europe, and I don't want to have, black members in the cast because they wouldn't have been in Europe at this time. There are situations where I think it's actually totally fine to discriminate on the basis of immutable characteristics. Now, there are going to be other situations where obviously we wouldn't want that, right? So we might not want somebody just like, well, I just don't like black people, so I'm just not going to hire them. But the way to solve that, I would agree with what you said, Steve. I don't think we should make it that, well, then the government's just going to force you to like meet some quota of black people that you have to hire. Instead, there's just going to be social stigmatization against that, right? It used
to work that way.
Right. Well, yeah. And so it's the same way where like, I don't want, like, if somebody, look, to give the recent example, right? People celebrating Charlie Kirk being murdered, right? I don't want the government to go round those people up and throw them into jail. Instead, I want social stigma against these people, right? Which can include their bosses being like, look, I don't want to hire you. Things like that. That's how we deal with those sorts of problems. And so in the same way, if somebody's just like a blatant racist and doesn't want to hire someone just because they're black, then, you can boycott the business on that.
Absolutely. You can protest too, but peacefully.
Right. So that these sorts of problems can be solved by themselves. You don't necessarily have to have the government get involved. So that would be my perspective.
Yeah, and in fact, a perfect example, I wasn't going to get into this other quote, but I guess that's a good segue, then we're going to try to wrap it up here. DEI hires, right? Because Kirk had actually said, if I see a black pilot, I think, was he qualified? And of course they twisted that out of context, but let me explain this real quick, what the context actually meant, because this gets right into the disparate impact theory, because it's basically saying, look, if we didn't ever have the Civil Rights Title II, which again, we're talking very specifically about Title II of the Civil Rights Act, and we didn't have DEI, most people, most normal, I would say all normal people, that makes you normal, would never look at a pilot and give a shit about his skin color and think anything about it. It would be like, hey, we got a pilot, cool. America was getting out of the Jim Crow. America was getting out of that racism. But who fueled it? The left. The left had to have it because they needed that racism to have that discord, to have that constrife, to have that power, because they kept telling the black people in the Latino community, we're going to do something for you. We're going to raise you up because the white man has shit all over you. It was so pernicious and so evil what they did to the minorities, because they basically told them, you can't get to where you want to go on your own merit. we're going to give you a helping hand. Now, again, I'm not exactly 100% against any all affirmative action and equity-based things. I'm not. Okay, I'm just not, because there's certain things that maybe scholarships, for example, for the black community. No against that. Private enterprise. Absolutely good on you. I think that should be. But when you have a DEI program that hires because you have to fill a quota that is no longer based on your skill or your merit, it's based upon a property that you have that's an intrinsic property, and they say, okay, did this person now that's flying my plane, are they part of the people that came in on a DEI hire? Because how many white males came in on a DEI hire? None. They're the ones being racially, alienated against. They're the ones that were being discriminated against. And so now you have people out there going, is this woman qualified? Is this black qualified? And we should have never gotten to that point, because we were at the point where nobody gave a flying fuck. What happened? Oh, the Democrats came up with this brilliant DEI bullshit.
So it's really bizarre. Like in the UK, in England, my perception of the attitude to race, I think is very different to that in the US, because we're not the melting pot that the US is. We weren't built on migration or diversity. Up until the early 2000s, the United Kingdom was probably one of the most homogenized nations on earth. We were white through and through. That being said, the United Kingdom steered and was responsible for the Commonwealth, and was also responsible for doing its damnedest to end slavery globally, thanks to the political adjudication, the political sort of campaigning of a guy called William Wilberforce. We sent thousands of sailors, hundreds of boats off the coast of West Africa to turn back slave ships, to go to war with slavers, essentially, to stop slavery. And all I ever hear about my nation, my country, is that you were part of the slave trade. You made money from it, like you owe your wealth, your prosperity from it. Therefore, you're evil. Therefore, fuck you. But that's just not historically accurate at all. We sent thousands of sailors to their deaths to try and stop slavery. We're the only empire, the only nation on earth that, against its own self-interest, determined that slavery was an evil, was wrong, and went to war to stop it, not to make money from it, but to stop it.
We all believe it's ethics. It's an unethical.
Yeah,
it goes against natural law.
But also, even given that, like, there are more slaves that live today than they did 100 years ago. Because frankly, we failed. We lost our power. Post Second World War, we lost our autocratic power over the globe. We lost our leverage. We gave it up. And why was it given up? It was given up because we burned all of our resources fighting fascism. And now those very same people who live in the world that was provided by England immolating itself on the throne of democracy are the ones that tell us that we're fucking fascists.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I'm just fucking done. I'm just done.
Yeah.
This reminds me of an example I was actually thinking of the other day, right? I was arguing with somebody online, and they were talking about, like, telling me about how, like, bad white people are, right, in the Americas because they enslaved black people, right? And, like, that's true, but we also kind of fought a war to free them, right? There's a shit ton of white Americans who died to also set them free. And that side of history also gets forgotten. A similar thing happens with the Crusades, right? People hate the Crusaders, but like the Crusades are the reason that you're not, speaking Arabic and under Sharia law today. So there is often this other forgotten side to history.
Well, and also the Crusades were a direct response to the Moors, like working their way up through Spain. Like people think that like the Crusades took place in like around like where in Palestine or Jordan or like where Israel is today. Like the Crusades didn't take fucking place there. They took place in like southern Spain. The Moors were like fighting their way north. You fucking daft bastard.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. But anyways, guys, I do have to wrap it up. This is what I miss. I got to tell you guys, this is really what I miss. Honest dialogue with two people that have been good friends of mine, people that I trust, and you two. I have nothing but praise for both of you, and that's what I want to foster. I want to foster people that in your life that you trust and that you want to have conversations with, and get through to the people that you can try to get through to. We are going to have more episodes, and we're going to be talking about many more things. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, there's like 10 different investigations going on that people don't seem to know what's going on when it comes to the J6 Commission pardons and the atrocity that the J6 Commission did to normal Americans, the Biden auto pen scandal, the trafficking of Biden Harris. I mean, there's just so many. Again, Russia hoax, which started almost all of this. The email scandal of Hillary's email, which was maybe even the precursor, actually was the precursor for Russia. A lot of people don't really know the details about these things. So I want to use this platform and the Non Sequitur show to explain those things to people, as well as discuss them and entertain. And I hope that people stick around for it. If not, that's fine too. I don't care if I have 3 people watching. I don't. It's not about how many people watch. It's about the 1 or 2 people that say, damn, I've learned something. Because that's always what I've wanted. And John, I'm going to let you say something real quick, and I'm going to let Dave have the final say, because he was my guest today, and wrap it up. You got 30 seconds, John. Not 5 minutes.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't really know what the fuck is going on with the world. It seems to have like veered left in a aggressive fashion, and then it has the temerity to be surprised when those of us on the reasonable, moderate right/center push back, and we push back in the gentlest of ways, which is generally speaking like, I kind of like Charlie Kirk. Can you not celebrate his death, please? And then they double down and like start attacking our position on free speech. I'm like, are you fucking mad? Are you out of your fucking goddamn mind? Like, you spent your entire life opposing this man for using his free speech, and like he got killed for using it. And then when we go, can you not like lie about him now he's dead and in the ground, and like has got a wife and kids that are mourning him, and you're now like, whilst we're using our free speech to critique you for critiquing him, you're telling you're now going, whoa, free speech.
Cancel culture.
Just like, I mean, how many times do you have to beat me over the head with the same principle before I turn around and go, you know what, just fuck you. Fuck you.
That's what I've said. That's what I think we all said. When nobody gives a shit anymore about the people that we don't give a shit about. I don't care what you have to say. If you're not a reasonable person and you're not going to treat me with respect, fuck off. I don't need you around my channel. I don't want you around my channel. I don't want that far left around my channel. This channel, real quick, had a pretty broad spectrum. We had everything from flat earthers listening to us, to hardcore Christians, to young creationists, to scientists, to physicists. But you know what? Anybody who has a radicalized view that they've not reasoned themselves into, as they so to speak, that, like Dave said, what are you going to do? But anyways, I got to let Dave have the last word, man.
Super quick. I'm at the stage where if you're going to weaponize my tolerance against me, then I can't be tolerant towards you.
I agree.
I have to treat you as a threat.
And I agree. That's what I'm doing. I treat them as a threat right now. I do.
Trust me, you don't want that. You don't want the people that think like me, that have have guns like me, have training like me.
Look,
You
John,
don't want that.
Charlie Kirk was a moderate to most people.
Yeah.
He was not extreme by
I'm
any
not.
stretch of the imagination. And I'm a lot more right than he was on when it comes to the patriotism, because I was military, and Dave's more right than me. So, I mean, what do you think you got left when you shoot, as you said, when you shoot the negotiator, the SWAT team comes in. So anyways, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then I'm going to say one or two more words, and let's call it a day.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing about this, right? People like me and you, Steve, we just wanted to live our lives, right? I fucking hate politics, right? I don't want to be involved in the political discussion. I was happy to let that do its thing, and I would stick to what I love doing with philosophy, theology, apologetics, right? The left had to go stuff politics into absolutely everything, and so like they're forcing people like me to get involved, right? I was happy to just be left alone with my far right views, and like I didn't want to be a part of this discourse. They forced me to, like, not literally but proverbially, take up the cause and fight against them, because they're like imposing on just what I wanted to do in my own little world. And I mean, I think a similar thing happened with you, Steve.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, I was
it's affected my real life. The politics have affected my real life.
They are the ones
I care about. Yeah,
they are the ones who have raised this army up against them, and so I mean, now here we are. They asked for the fight, and we're bringing it. So yeah, I'll just say on that, I've appreciated your content on this lately, Steve. Of course, I've always liked you. Going back to our old fights over philosophy and religion.
You're so sweet.
But I've never liked agreed with your content so hard as I have lately. And of course, for me,
I like to hear that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not a politics guy, right? Like, that's not where I specialize. I specialize in other stuff. So I mean, I have actually appreciated. I've learned a lot through your work, shared it around and things, and so I just appreciate you for doing the.
Not that I want to drag this around, Dave, but where do you specialize, if you don't mind me asking?
So typically, I mean, epistemology is probably my favorite topic, but
that's why we used to talk a lot. I like epistemology. You don't find a lot of people that are interested in epistemology, right? It's like a lot of people don't even know what an epistemologist even is.
I am interested though in how that intersects with other things. I also, on the side, and this sounds like something you and I might have in common, John. I also have a sort of side hobby with military history, with particular focus on the Crusades. So that's why I was appreciating some of your comments before.
Yeah. Anyways, it's very much.
It's great to hear. Like,
right. John, I'm gonna wrap it up. Can I can you guys both mute for a minute?
No, you can't. Absolutely not. We're going to carry on having a great conversation.
All right. So they're still in the background. I haven't kicked them out or anything, but I do want to wrap it up to my audience here, and feel free to chime in. I'm not silencing both of you. I'm just saying that, look, the channel's taking a different direction.
Because that would make you a leftist if you did, Steve.
Okay, so call for the political assassination of John now, right?
You're just canceling us.
Look, you're on this channel. You don't even know the backlash you might even get now, right? Because I've already lost hundreds of subscribers. And here's the thing. I'm grateful for losing those subscribers. Let me explain to you why. Because those people that didn't want to stick around for the conversation, that didn't want to hear the facts, I can't get through to anyways. So why would I want them to be around when I'd rather have the people around that I can get through? Because again, it's not about the views, it's not about the clicks. As I've said before on my social media, if you're not following me on Twitter or Facebook, then you probably don't know what the hell's going on in my life, which is fine. You don't have to, right? We're not on a personal relationship with everybody. I happen to get along with Dave and John. I talk to them outside of the streams. They're my friends. I enjoy their conversations. But most people, they're just going to watch something and go from there, right? They just see you as somebody that's streaming. I'm not a public figure, never have been a public figure, but I'm public, and people have known me. I have some name recognition. But the thing is that what they have to understand is when I put on my social media, it comes from the heart. It is my core beliefs. And when I tell you this, I mean it with every shred of my fiber of my being. What I posted the other day. There's only a handful of things that I give a shit about in my real life. And nothing matters to me more than that. Nothing. And it's going to be family, loved ones in my country, pretty much, and then my close friends. But when people hurt them or ideologically, manipulate them, I'm going to put out the correct information to the best of my ability and hope that they listen to it. That's the best I can do. And if people want to be around for the journey, then come watch the shows, engage, and I'm happy to have you. But I do not want the progressive left around that's just going to throw empty negative rhetoric out there with no substantive discussion. It's just not conducive any longer. It was a great vehicle when we started the Non Sequitur show. I have no regrets in that. It was wonderful. But unfortunately, the political climate has changed, and the days for certain types of debates, in my opinion, is just over, at least for me. And I hope people can respect that, because this is super personal with me. It wasn't before. It only became personal with me probably about a month ago or two. So when I tell you this is new stuff, it really is. And it goes to the people that I care about. And thank God that I did meet the girl that I hanging out with, again, not to put labels on it, but there's a fundamental, profound thing that had happened with me when that happened. And maybe within the days, I'll discuss it with the people I care about. A few people know, but very, very few people really know the details. And that's all it should be, because that's how I want it. But I will tell you that no matter how well you and I or anybody else has ever gotten along, you're not going to get away with between me and my most cherished loved ones and the people that I care about, just like I wouldn't expect it for anybody else. So with that, you guys got anything?
Thanks for having me on.
Likewise. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see you later on the. Okay, go ahead.
No, it's just it's literally based on what you've just said. And I know you're trying to close out, and I hate to do this, but
it's okay. You know what? My hard stop was 4:00 my time, so you got 3 minutes. So we're going to keep it under that one. That was my hard stop. So you're okay. Say what you got to say, my friend. You know it.
So with what you were saying about friends, I have 3 really close friends. I don't consider them to be friends. I consider them to be brothers. Like, if they needed a kidney or a chunk of my liver, they would have it. And we had a proper knockdown drag out a couple of weeks ago, where one of them threatened me with physical violence in order to change a political opinion. And another one just outright called me a fascist and a Nazi. And I think reasonably I lost my temper with them and just left. They were trying to host some kind of Maoist intervention, like some kind of crazy ass struggle session. And I entertained it for about an hour. And by the time we got to the end of this hour, I was just like, you guys don't know me at all. You don't appreciate we. And when I say friends, I don't mean like I met them last week and I called them friends. I'm 41 years old, and I've known every single one of these men for 30 years, 3 decades. We yeah. They were all groomsmen at mine. I've been all groomsmen at theirs.